if you raise importation taxes on cement and on clinker, then what he's trying to tell us is that he's trying to give impetus to the local producers of cement so that they can produce cheaper cement. But the truth is, this is a very expensive country to produce anything, whether you're producing a sweet, that sweet called patco, or a bag of cement. Our cost of production, which is majorly anchored on our cost of energy, is unbelievable. We are the most uncompetitive country in East African region. If you are a manufacturer today, you better go off going to settle up in Rwanda and Tanzania than coming to Kenya. And the issue of energy is easy. And we want to say this to Ruto. And we can give him ideas if our captain allowed us. But we are not here to consult for government. We are not paid by Ruto to consult for him. But this, if you read our manifesto, we had brought up the issue of grid losses in this country. This country is losing 23% of its power on grid losses. Now, let me put that in perspective. 23%, so it's about 0.25% of the power that is produced in Kenya today is lost between production, reticulation, and the end-use customer. In the Azimio manifesto, we had proposed to bring the grid losses down from 23% to 10%. Let me put that further into perspective. Every 1% drop on grid losses is 1.2 billion Kenya shillings. Every 1% drop on grid losses is 1.2 billion shillings saved that can be transferred to the end user. So it doesn't matter how much, you raise the cost of, you raise the cost of imports. What the government should be doing is ensure that producing locally is competitive, that bag of cement can be produced locally at a cheaper price to match the global and the East African market prices. But this obnoxious government is doing the exact opposite. The same is happening to iron rods and steel bars and craft. Let me spend some time on craft. Craft is the paper that wraps unga. I want to be like my colleague, Honorable Bandi. I do not know what Ruto has with unga. Unga has been hit from left, right, and center. Whether it's VAT, whether it's the actual production of the maize plant in terms of fertilizer and inputs, whether it's the milling, that milling is being hit by, the high cost of fuel, whether it's the transportation between the miller and the shop, the transportation costs, I think Baba has said that very clearly. The trucks that are transporting are now going to be paying 60,000 shillings as opposed to 20,000 shillings per ton, which was what was going on. Now, unga, the paper that wraps unga usually is imported. This there's a proposal to impose a 10% duty on the wrapping paper. So who will bear these costs? It is you and I who are the consumers of unga. Once again, we want to ask, what problem do you have with unga, Mr. Ruto? Let's go to leather. The industry of leather in this country has shrunk over time. And this is because a lot of rawhide is smuggled out of this country. In fact, the experts are telling us we are losing 70% of our rawhide to China through some smuggling process out of this country. So what Ruto is proposing in clause 67, in clause 62, is that he will impose an export levy, on rawhide. So what will this then do is that it will increase, the impetus of people exporting, rawhide. So what does it then do to our tanneries? We have 9 tanneries. They are working, I'm told, at about 30%. We will be closing these tanneries, and everybody who works there will be asked to go home. Therefore, job losses. Clause 67 is proposing to increase the import declaration fee. I mean, that has been canvassed. I think it was also in barber speech, from 1.5 to 2.5%. My argument about importation is create a more efficient, effective internal structure so that goods are produced cheaply, and you expand your tax base so that you do not have to worry about what is coming in because you're already competitive enough. Let me move to the second last item, which is a tax appeal tribunal. Now, something very interesting here is happening. That today, if you have a tax issue, you have a tax case, you will pay KRA 20% of the disputed amount. So today, I am disputing 100 million shillings. I will pay KRA, before we start anything, before I file my case with High Court, I will pay KRA some 20 million shillings. Now, this 20 million will not be earning interest. It will be put in an account we call escrow. So an escrow account, that money will be sitting there waiting for you to decide whether you won or you lost the case. You all know how long it takes in this country to, you know, and the lawyers, I can see Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka is here, Honorable Mother. Cases take an immensely long time. So this money will be sitting there, waiting for the case to be concluded, and you will get back your 20 million shillings 5 years down the line, no interest. That is what Ruto is proposing. Now, once you remove, I mean, apart from the fact that it's very unfair, of course, that you have a tax dispute, and over and above that, you're being asked to cough more money, I think from our side, we're saying there is also an issue of evasion of justice. The Constitution is clear. I think the lawyers can guide me. It's Article 48 of the Constitution. And I think I have my Constitution here. If I could just read, because it's important for us to get this bit. It's about access of justice. The state shall ensure access to justice for all persons, and if any fee is required, it shall be reasonable and shall not impede access to justice. So I don't know how reasonable 20% is. If you ask me a reasonable fee, it will be, should be in the decimals in 0.001, 0.002. That is a reasonable fee. But 20%, Mr. Ruto, by no means is not a reasonable fee as is prescribed by our Constitution. Last but not least, we talk about the Tax Procedure Act. And this one is extremely interesting. Just like we see in the entire bill, we see Ruto safeguarding his friends. So if you are a friend, I think what he has realized is a lot of his friends have issues with taxes. Because in clause 51, he's proposing an amnesty on any interest, penalties, fees for anybody who has a tax dispute as at 31st of December 2022. Apart from the fact that this sets a very, very bad precedence, because then if I'm the president next time, I will just ask my buddies, how many of you have cases? I can offer you amnesty. So it sets a bad precedence. But we read mischief in this particular amnesty, and we know they're all in government, all of them who have issues with KRA, whose factories have been closed. So what he's telling his friends is that I will give you amnesty until 2024. Please go and sort out your issues. I will scrap your fees and your penalties. I thank you very much for the privilege of your attention. Those are my issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. As the Honorable Badi encouraged Honorable members and Kenyans at large, read the provisos, read the proposal, and check what it is proposing to change. Because if you just read the change, you might think it's a benign change, not knowing that it's not a benign change. Like this issue of the import declaration fees, if you don't read the proviso, you will think it's a good thing. Now, the overall change says, let's move IDF fees from 3.5% to 2.5%. And that might sound like a good thing, except if you read the original act, you will find there is a proviso provided that raw materials for manufacturing should pay 1.5%. So if you remove the proviso, it means that everything, including the raw materials, goes from 1.5 to 2.5%, which then has the effect of making manufacturing more expensive. We would like to allow perhaps 3 questions of a technical nature, because the presentation is not fully finished. The principals will make interventions at a policy level. So if members of the fourth estate have, let's allow no more than 3 technical questions. In answering those questions, our colleague Saitoti Torome will